Cu Zhi is a short story written by Pu Songling, a literary figure from the Qing Dynasty. And it's part of the collection Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, specifically found in Volume 4. The story tells of a young child's transformation into a cricket's ghost to alleviate his father's worries. This tale is a perfect blend of reality and fiction. During the Xuandi period of the Ming Dynasty, there was a trend within the imperial court for gambling with crickets, which were collected from the common folk each year. These insects were originally not found in Shaanxi province. A county official from Huan County wanted to curry favor with his superiors and presented a cricket as a gift. The superior had it fight, showcasing its courage and fighting abilities, and ordered the official to supply crickets regularly. The official then tasked local constables from various villages with this duty. Consequently, young idlers in the market began to catch crickets and raise them in bamboo cages, raising their value. They stored them as rare and precious goods, anticipating a high price for their sale. The local constables exploited this opportunity to extract money from the common people, causing several households to go bankrupt with each demanded cricket. In the county lived a man named Cheng Ming, a scholar who had never succeeded in the imperial examinations. He was reserved and not good at conversation, which made him a target for the cunning petty officials. He was appointed to a position of responsibility within the village. He tried every method to escape from this duty but couldn't manage it. Within a year, his modest assets were lost. Just as the cricket collection was being enforced, Cheng Ming couldn't bring himself to extort money from the villagers, but he had no compensation to offer. Anxious and despondent, he contemplated suicide. His wife said, "What good would death do? Why not try to find one on your own? There's a 1 in 10,000 chance you might catch one." Cheng Ming thought her advice was sound. He began leaving early and returning late, carrying a bamboo tube and a silk net. He searched around the dilapidated walls, dug into the ground, and tried various methods, but to no avail. Even if he managed to catch 2 or 3 crickets, they were weak and small, not fitting the specifications. The county official imposed strict deadlines and pressured him. In a span of a little over 10 days, Cheng Ming was flogged hundreds of times, his legs oozing blood. Even his ability to catch crickets was compromised, and he spent his days in bed, contemplating suicide. At this juncture, a hunchbacked witch arrived in the village. She was said to possess the power to divine good and bad luck through spirits. Cheng Ming's wife prepared a gift and went to beseech the spirits. The witch's room was crowded with both beautiful young women and elderly women with white hair. Cheng Ming's wife entered the witch's room and saw that the dimly lit space had a curtain drawn across, with an altar for offerings outside. The people seeking guidance would light incense and bow twice to the altar. The witch stood nearby, gazing into the air as she silently prayed for them. Lips moved but no sound emerged. The onlookers stood in awe, listening attentively. After a while, a piece of paper was thrown out from the room. The contents of the paper matched exactly what the supplicants had in their minds to ask, with no errors whatsoever. Cheng Ming's wife placed money on the altar, followed the customs of others, and offered incense and bows. After about the time it takes to eat a meal, the curtain stirred, and a paper fell down. Upon picking it up, she saw it wasn't words but a drawing. It depicted a palace-like structure, resembling a temple. At the base of the mountain behind the palace were oddly shaped stones and clusters of thorns. A cricket with a green head was nestled among them, while a toad with warts was nearby, as if it were about to jump. She studied it for a while but didn't understand its meaning. However, since the cricket in the drawing matched her husband's quest, she folded the paper and took it home to show Cheng Ming. Cheng Ming pondered repeatedly. Could it be pointing to the location where he should find crickets? Upon closer examination, the scene in the picture bore a striking resemblance to the village's Eastern Buddhist temple. Cheng Ming endured his pain and rose, using his staff to support himself, carrying the drawing as he went behind the temple. He noticed a raised mound, and as he approached it, He saw that the stones were arranged in a fish scale pattern, just like in the drawing. He began to walk along the ancient mound, straining his ears and moving slowly, as though he were searching for a needle in a haystack. Despite exerting all his efforts, mental, visual, and auditory, he found no trace or sound of a cricket. While he was engrossed in his exploration, a toad leapt past him. This further surprised Cheng Ming, who pursued it. However, the toad vanished into the grass. Following its tracks, Cheng Ming entered the undergrowth, where he saw a cricket crouched under a thorn. He lunged to capture it, and the cricket jumped into a crevice in the rocks. He poked at it with a thin blade of grass, but the cricket refused to come out. He then used a bamboo tube to pour water into the crevice. Only then did the cricket emerge, displaying its elegant and robust form. Cheng Ming chased after it, eventually capturing it. Upon closer inspection, he saw that the cricket had a large build, a long tail, a green neck, and golden wings. Cheng Ming was overjoyed and placed it in a cage before bringing it home. The entire family celebrated and cherished it, viewing it as more valuable than priceless jade. They placed it in a basin, feeding it a mixture of crab meat and chestnut flour, showing it the utmost care. They awaited the expiration of the deadline to present it to the county authorities. Cheng Ming had a 9-year-old son who, when he saw his father was not home, secretly opened the basin to take a look. The cricket leaped out in an instant, faster than he could catch. When he finally grabbed it, the cricket's legs had fallen off, and its belly was torn, resulting in its death shortly afterward. The child was frightened and ran to tell his mother, who turned pale and exclaimed in horror, "Omen, your time of death has come. When your father returns, he'll surely hold you accountable." The child cried and ran away. Not long after, Cheng Ming returned, and upon hearing his wife's words, he seemed to freeze over like ice and snow. Filled with anger, he went searching for his son, who had disappeared without a trace. Soon, they found the boy's lifeless body in a well. Cheng Ming's rage turned to sorrow in an instant, and he cried out in despair, his grief reaching its zenith. The husband and wife wept and sobbed in a corner of their thatch house. No smoke rose from the chimney, and they sat face to face without uttering a word, left without any support. It wasn't until evening that they prepared a grass mat to bury their child. As they approached, they felt a faint breath. Joyfully, they laid him on the bed, and in the middle of the night, the child awakened once more. The couple found a bit of solace in their hearts, but the child appeared vacant, his breath weak, his only desire to sleep. Cheng Ming glanced at the empty cricket cage, overwhelmed with sadness, unable to speak or even think about his son. From nightfall until dawn, his eyes never closed. By the time the eastern sun had risen, he remained rigid on the bed, consumed by worry. Suddenly, he heard the chirping of a cricket outside the door. Surprised, he looked closely and saw that the cricket seemed to still be there. Happily, he reached out to catch it. The cricket chirped once and leaped away swiftly. He attempted to cover it with his hand, but his palm came up empty, as if there were nothing there. Just as he raised his hand, the cricket jumped away again, far out of reach. Cheng Ming hurriedly pursued it, turning a corner, but he lost sight of it. He looked around in every direction, searching, and finally spotted the cricket crouched on the wall. Cheng Ming observed it carefully, noticing that it was small, black-red in color, and felt that it wasn't like the previous one. Due to its small size, Cheng Ming didn't think much of it. Yet he couldn't help but continue searching for the one he had chased. At that moment, the small cricket on the wall suddenly jumped onto his sleeve. Upon closer inspection, he realized it looked like a grasshopper, with plum blossom wings, a square head, and long legs. He found it quite appealing and adopted it joyfully. He planned to present it to the authorities, but he still felt uneasy, fearing that it might not meet the county officials' expectations. He decided to test it in a fight before deciding its fate. In the village, there was a meddlesome young man who owned a cricket of his own, naming it Crabshell Green. He engaged in battles with other youngsters daily and never lost. Hoping to profit greatly by selling it as a rare item, he raised its price, yet no one bought it. One day, the young man paid Cheng Ming a visit, saw the cricket he was raising, and merely smiled with a hand covering his mouth. He then took out his own cricket and placed it into the cage alongside Cheng Ming's. Upon seeing the other cricket, Cheng Ming felt ashamed of the small size of his own. The young man insisted on a fight, but Cheng Ming thought that raising such an inferior creature was ultimately futile, so he agreed to let them fight for amusement. He placed both crickets in a basin, and his own cricket remained still, resembling a wooden chicken, while the young man laughed heartily. The young man tried to provoke the cricket's antennae with a pig's bristle, but the cricket still didn't move, and the young man laughed again. He continued to provoke it several times, until Cheng Ming's cricket suddenly became angry and lunged forward. They engaged in a struggle, leaping and grappling, flapping their wings and making noise. Suddenly, Cheng Ming's cricket jumped up, extended its tail, and bit down on the other cricket's neck. The young man was shocked and quickly separated them, ending the contest. Cheng Ming's cricket raised its head and wings, triumphantly chirping, as if reporting a victory to its master. Cheng Ming was elated. Just then, a chicken appeared and pecked at Cheng Ming's cricket. Cheng Ming shouted in alarm, relieved that it hadn't been hit, and the cricket leaped over a foot away. The chicken was robust and forceful, chasing after the cricket. Cheng Ming's cricket was pinned beneath the chicken's claw. Cheng Ming panicked, unsure of how to save it. He was so anxious that he stamped his feet and his face turned pale. Suddenly, he saw the chicken stretching its neck and twisting its head. Upon closer inspection, Cheng Ming realized that his cricket had jumped onto the chicken's comb and was fiercely biting it. Cheng Ming was overjoyed, plucked the cricket from the chicken's head, and placed it back in its cage. The next day, Cheng Ming presented the cricket to the county official. The official, upon seeing its small size, scolded Cheng Ming. Cheng Ming explained the cricket's unique abilities, but the official was skeptical. They tested it in fights against other crickets, and all of them were defeated. They also tested it against a chicken, and it performed just as Cheng Ming had described. Consequently, Cheng Ming received a reward and the cricket was presented to the regional governor. The governor was particularly pleased with it, placed it in a golden cage, and presented it to the emperor. He submitted a detailed report describing the cricket's abilities. In the palace, all the butterflies, mantises, oil beetles, green silk crickets, and various rare crickets that were contributed from across the country were pitted against the small cricket. None of them could surpass it. Whenever it heard the sound of a kin or say, it danced to the rhythm, which everyone found even more astonishing. The emperor was even more delighted and issued a decree rewarding the governor with fine horses and silk fabrics. The governor remembered the favor, and before long, the county official gained a reputation for his remarkable talents. The official, in his happiness, relieved Cheng Ming of his duties and instructed the chief examiner to ensure that Cheng Ming passed the imperial examinations. In a little over a year, Cheng Ming had accumulated more than 100 acres of land, numerous tall buildings, and countless cattle and sheep. Every time he went out, he wore light fur and rode a fine horse, exuding an air of prosperity even greater than that of families who had held official positions for generations. Pu Songling said, "The emperor occasionally uses something, not necessarily remembering it afterward. However, those who implement orders down the line treat it as an unchanging tradition. Coupled with the greed and tyranny of officials, the common people are weighed down by debts, selling wives and children all year round, and the situation is unending. Thus, every move of the emperor affects the lives of the common people and cannot be ignored." Only Cheng Ming, due to the oppression of officials, went from poverty to wealth, wearing luxurious fur and riding in lavish carriages. When he served as a local officer and suffered beatings, who could have anticipated his current circumstances? Heaven uses such rewards to repay those who are honest and loyal. Even the regional governor and county official benefited from the cricket's favor. They say, when one person becomes enlightened, even chickens and dogs can ascend to heaven. This statement is absolutely true.